Padre Pio often said that the most mysterious moment of a person's life is the final breath, the instant when time releases its hold and eternity begins to open. To those standing beside a dying person, it may look like a simple exhale, a quiet fading of life. But for Padre Pio, gifted with spiritual vision, that final second was a moment filled with movement, light, and unimaginable spiritual intensity. In that last heartbeat, the soul slowly begins to separate from the body, almost like a flame lifting off a candle wick. Padre Pio described it not as a sudden break, but as a gentle but powerful transition, a moment when the body weakens but the soul becomes startlingly awake. The senses of the flesh shut down, but the senses of the spirit ignite with clarity. The dying person might seem unconscious, unable to speak or respond, yet spiritually, something profound is taking place. Padre Pio saw that just as the final breath approaches, the veil between the visible world and the invisible grows unbelievably thin. Time, something we spend our entire lives chasing, measuring, and fearing, suddenly loses all power. In that instant, the soul stands at the doorway between two realms, the fading world of earth and the eternal realm that has been waiting since the first moment of existence. To Padre Pio, this moment was not frightening but sacred. He saw angels drawing near, surrounding the soul with a calm, almost solemn reverence. Heaven does not rush. It waits. It watches. It prepares to receive or to judge depending on the state of the soul. That final breath may last only a fraction of a second, but in the spiritual world, it becomes a vast moment where truth, destiny, and eternity converge. This is the second in which everything is revealed and everything begins. Padre Pio often spoke of a mysterious moment that takes place at the threshold of death, a moment he called the illumination of the soul. In the exact second after the final breath leaves the body, the soul is confronted with a truth it can no longer escape, the full and unfiltered reality of its entire life. To human eyes, this moment seems silent, peaceful, almost still. But Padre Pio saw something very different unfolding in the spiritual realm. He described it as an instantaneous unveiling, as if the soul is suddenly surrounded by a brilliant light that reflects everything it has ever been. Not just actions, but intentions. Not only choices, but the hidden desires behind them. In that flash, a person sees every moment where love was offered and refused, every opportunity to do good and ignored, every hurt healed, and every hurt inflicted. Nothing is exaggerated, nothing is minimized. It is perfect truth, shown with perfect clarity. Padre Pio said this illumination is not meant to punish the soul, but to awaken it. For many, this revelation is filled with beauty-showing moments they never realized brought joy to God, moments of kindness they had forgotten, sacrifices they made in silence. For others, the light exposes painful realities they spent their whole lives denying. The soul sees not the version of itself it presented to the world, but the version that God has always seen. Yet there is something deeply merciful about this moment. Padre Pio explained that God does not reveal the soul's life with anger, but with a sorrowful tenderness. The soul feels not humiliation, but a piercing understanding of the truth it ignored or embraced. In this single divine instant, the entire weight of a lifetime is revealed clearer than memory, sharper than conscience, brighter than any earthly light. Padre Pio often said that the final second of life is not a quiet passing, it is a battlefield. To the physical eye, the dying person may seem still, but in the spiritual realm, something fierce and urgent unfolds. In that moment when the soul separates from the body, both heaven and hell draw near, each seeking what belongs to them. Angels stand ready to guide the soul upward, while forces of darkness lurk in the shadows, hoping to claim a heart weakened by sin or despair. Padre Pio described seeing angels positioned beside the dying, their presence gentle yet powerful. They do not force the soul. They invite it, call it, protect it. Their light is warm and steady, filling the moment with hope. But he also saw the enemy dark spirits who waited for any opening, any unrepented sin, any lingering bitterness, to pull the soul away from the light. These forces do not approach with dramatic violence. They whisper, they sow confusion, they intensify fear. They exploit every wound the soul carries. This struggle, Padre Pio said, happens in complete silence from the perspective of the living. No one at the bedside sees the angel shielding the soul or the darkness pressing against it. But the soul feels everything. It feels the pull of fear and the pull of mercy. It feels the weight of its life, the clarity of its choices, and the urgency of a decision it must make even in its final moments. The angels, full of compassion, fight not with swords but with truth, with reminders of every prayer the soul ever made, every good act it ever offered, every grace it once accepted. The forces of darkness fight with lies, with memories of guilt, with despair. Padre Pio said the spiritual battle can be more intense in the last second than in an entire lifetime. For in that single moment, eternity hangs in the balance. According to Padre Pio, there is a moment in the final breath so brief it cannot be measured by clocks, when the soul makes its last and most important choice. He said that even if a person has lived far from God, even if their life has been stained by sin, heaven still offers one final opportunity. This chance comes not through spoken words, because the lips can no longer move, but through the silent cry of the heart. In that last second, the soul stands exposed, fragile, and fully aware of its destiny. And in that awareness, something extraordinary happens. The soul understands how desperately it needs mercy. Padre Pio described seeing souls who, in their final instant, turned toward God with a whisper of surrender that could not be heard by human ears but was thunderous in heaven. These souls, even after a lifetime of mistakes, were met by a rush of divine compassion. Angels lifted them eagerly, carrying them toward the light, not because they were perfect, but because they sought mercy with complete sincerity. But Padre Pio also saw the opposite. Some souls recoiled from the light, trapped in fear, pride, or defiance. They remembered their sins, but instead of begging for forgiveness, they sank deeper into despair. The darkness used this moment to make them believe they were beyond saving, beyond love, beyond hope. Hell's greatest weapon in the last second is not hatred, it is hopelessness. This 1-second decision, Padre Pio taught, is not random. It is shaped by the habits of a lifetime. A soul that practiced humility finds it easier to cry for mercy. A soul hardened by pride struggles to surrender, even when eternity is at the door. In that final instant, heaven bends close, waiting for one simple act, a genuine cry for mercy. It is the smallest prayer. Yet it decides eternity. Padre Pio often emphasized that no soul dies alone and no final moment is ever silent. What seems to families like a peaceful fading or sometimes a frightening stillness is in reality a moment filled with divine activity. Through years of mystical experiences, Padre Pio learned that the last second of life is the most spiritually crowded moment a person will ever experience. He saw that God's mercy does not stop at the threshold of death. Even when the body can no longer move, speak, or respond, grace continues to work with incredible intensity. Heaven surrounds the dying person. Angels draw near. The soul becomes clearer than ever before, and the truth of one's life shines unmistakably. The soul is more awake in this moment than in any moment on earth. Padre Pio discovered that the final second holds opportunities that many never expect. Some souls receive last-minute clarity. They understand their mistakes. They see the love they rejected, and they feel the weight of eternity approaching. This clarity is itself a gift of God, a final invitation to choose light over darkness. He also learned that God respects the soul's freedom until the very end. Heaven does not force itself on anyone. It offers, it calls, it pleads, but it does not overpower. The soul must decide. From these visions, Padre Pio came to a profound conclusion. The last second of life is one of God's greatest mercies, filled with truth, love, and a final chance to turn toward Him. It is not empty, it is sacred, decisive, and overflowing with grace.